And you said in terms of the tax refund, are we talking about thousands of dollars that people will be getting as a result?
We could see, for working families, for each wage earner, we could see up to $1,000 per wage earner.
Okay. You said that prices are still coming down, but they're still elevated. The president announced many things, a litany of things, just in the last 100 days. And I want you to walk through some of these things and tell us why they're important.
Guys, thank you so much for joining me. John Soto, this is SotoCast. We're going to take, Bartiromo is about to list off a bunch of things that are on the president's agenda to Scott Bessent. He's going to break them down one by one. Take a listen to him. He's a master at it, and we'll interject on the way.
Because he put a ban on large institutional investors purchasing single-family homes. He asked for $200 billion purchases of mortgage-backed securities, and he put on a proposal for a 10% cap on credit card interest rates. We know credit card interest rates are always soaring, up to 28, 30% in some cases. That's going to cut into earnings of the bank, certainly. And he also teased something about 401ks, that you would be able to tap into your 401k to then buy a home. Walk us through these things. Why are these so key, in your view, to growth and to reining in prices?
Well, here, why don't we start from the beginning? So,
the first thing was the ban on large institutional investors purchasing single-family homes and the purchase of mortgage-backed securities.
Yep. So the ban on institutional investors in single-family homes, for those of you who are not American, in the U.S., pre-Great Financial Crisis, institutional investors did not participate in the single-family market. So post the financial crisis, institutional investors hoovered up single-family homes. They continue to do it, and there's an unfair tax arbitrage there. You and I have a mortgage. We can deduct the mortgage amount. Institutional investors can deduct the borrowing amount, but they can also expense any repairs and depreciation. So we think that it is a good idea to have them out of the market. We are going to give guidance at some point to see what is a mom and pop, that someone, maybe your parents for their retirement, have bought 5, 10, 12 homes. So we don't want to push the mom and pops out. We just want to push everyone else out. And what's important here, you will hear some misinformation that says, well, institutional investors are 1, 2, 3%. That is true. Having been in markets for 35 or 40 years, markets are made on the margin, and institutional investors are much higher in boomtown markets like Charlotte, like Atlanta.
That's a great point. I actually did a video on this when it first came out. I thought it was a fantastic idea. But then when you look into, mainly we're talking about Blackstone in this scenario. When you look into Blackstone and their portfolio, he's probably at actually a little bit higher. They're around 3 or 4% of the total market cap from what I saw. And I said, this is probably not going to do it. This is probably not going to cut it. Even if you cut everybody out of the market like that. And then the mom and pops, they're kind of still considering mom and pops anything under 100 units. That still seems like quite a bit. But you don't want to, take away all the incentive for people to acquire wealth. So there's going to be a balancing act there. But one of the things that he brought up there, something I didn't think about before, the fact that there's a tax kind of a loophole there, right? Because myself in my house, I can't write these things off. I can't write off the repairs and the maintenance and stuff like that to my house because it's my home. Whereas an institutional buyer, or if you have a couple of small houses that you have for rent as an individual, you can do that. That's actually something that I use because I do have a couple of units that I personally have. So that is something that I didn't think about. These institutions, they buy these single-family homes. Not only are they able to write off a lot of the taxes when it comes to like the state taxes, but also and the mortgage expense, stuff like that. But they can also write off all the repairs that they're doing, and that kind of makes it not fair, I guess, because these massive conglomerates are going to. If they didn't do this, that 1 and 2% would have definitely grown. But he's also right that these things are on the margins, right? There are very, when it comes to real estate and stuff like that, when it comes to, most businesses are made on the margins, and that's what they're trying to help right now.
Like Huntsville, Alabama. So they've done that. In terms of having Fannie and Freddie buy MBS, the mortgages are two parts. It is the 10-year bond yield, and it is the spread between mortgages and the 10-year yield. So the purpose of that is to narrow the spread.
Okay. The cap on credit card rates is expected to cut into bank earnings between 5 and 18%. Your reaction?
We've done a lot this year. Bank stocks are at a new high. That through my position on FSOC, the Financial Stability Oversight Council, and the 3 bank regulators, the Federal Reserve, the OCC, the FDIC, we have done a lot to deregulate banks. Their earnings are way up. More importantly, it has increased their lending capacity. Oliver Wyman's numbers, not mine, estimates that there's 2.5 trillion of extra lending capacity. The other thing that has been a focus of this administration and a focus of mine is small and community banks, because what happened after the great financial crisis, all the regulations from Dodd-Frank, we had too big to fail. But then with small banks, you were too small to succeed. This regulatory morass, we have lost more than 50% of the small and community banks. And they power small business lending, real estate lending, and ag lending. So we are trying to bring that back.
Yeah, it's a great point, because farmers really need the lending of these small community banks. Look, Secretary, I want to get your take overall on your thoughts on what you've done so far, because the president back last year, right after the inauguration, I sat down with the president and I asked him what he wants the economy to look like in 4 years when he's done. And he was very clear. He said he wants private enterprise to rule the day. 1 year later, you've taken a 10% stake in Intel. You've taken a stake in MP. Now, I know that these are national security issues. And the other day, the president told the defense contractors, don't pay dividends, don't buy back any of your stock. You need to be fulfilling what the country needs in terms of producing a weapon. So what do you want to say to people who say, look, here is a so-called capitalist president and a Treasury Secretary, and yet it's not private enterprise running things. The president is telling the defense contractors what to do, and you've taken stakes in these companies.
A couple of things, Maria. I think the only...
It's a great question, by the way. It's a phenomenal question. I don't know if he anticipated that, but I'm sure he's going to handle it very well.
A good thing that came from COVID was it was a test run for what would happen if our supply chains were ever broken due to a kinetic war. So we saw that there are 5, 6, 7 key industries that we have to reshore. So everything you just said, rare earth magnets, we've got to get out from under China's grasp. The semiconductors, I would say that the single biggest threat to the world economy, the single biggest point of single failure, is that 97% of the high-end chips are made in Taiwan. If that island were blockaded, that capacity were destroyed, it would be an economic apocalypse. So we are reshoring the semiconductor industry to the U.S. With the defense contractors are no different than the systemically important banks. They exist, like the systemically important banks exist because of the backstop from the Fed, because of the regulations, and these defense contractors have let down the American people. They have let down the American people. They are 5, 6, 7 years behind on fulfillment of their contracts, and they exist because of the U.S. Department of War. So I do not think it is unreasonable to tell them that until further notice, you need to build more factories and buy back less stock. And by the way, Maria, these CEOs making $30, $50 million a year for failing the American people. So I don't see any discrepancy there. And it's, as you said, everything on your list is national defense.
That is a great point, right? Yes, they're capitalistic in nature. However, if we are their biggest consumer, then the president is our spokesperson, and he has a say in whether or not they're going to continue to get their money in the way that they're getting it. It's still capitalism, in essence. And that's exactly what he's saying, and that's why he's fantastic. That's what he's saying. We're the biggest consumer. The American people, the public, the Department of War is the largest consumer for these companies. So yes, we can tell you, listen, yeah, you're paying the CEO a lot of money. That's great, fine. All you're doing is buying back stock because of the money that we're giving you, and you're not fulfilling your end of the deal. So either you get your shit together, or we're gonna have to figure something else out. It's very well said.
And so once they get to some normalized level of backlog, I don't know whether it's 2 years, 3 years, then we can talk about removing those restrictions.
So what you're saying is you want private enterprise to lead the day, but when it comes to national security, the government will be a shareholder.
And again, a lot of this isn't private. We have seen what happens when the free markets get kind of perverted. Because what happens with critical minerals, that several companies have tried to stand up critical minerals facilities in the U.S., and the Chinese come, lower price, undercut them, and then they're bankrupt. So we are going to put in a system, price floor, price ceilings, and when you talk about multilateralism and the U.S. leading, I just hosted at Treasury last Monday the G7++, so G7 plus Australia plus India plus Mexico plus South Korea, and we are working at warp speed to create a critical minerals block where we can mine, process, and refine critical minerals, and China won't have this sword over our heads.
So how long do you think it will be until the United States is, in fact, independent in terms of the refinement of these minerals, independent in terms of oil, et cetera. I mean, I know that the U.S. is the largest producer anyway, but do you expect this year, next year, what's your timetable in terms of the U.S. not relying on China for these things?
Well, obviously for energy, we are independent. We're an energy superpower. And I would say 18 to 24 months. I went down about 2 months ago to my home state of South Carolina. And in South Carolina, for the first time in 25 years, there's a producer there who made rare earth magnets. So they are starting to come off the supply chain. They believe that within 2 years, they can fulfill most of the rare earth magnet needs for the U.S. And then we also want to help our allies because the supply chain is important.
Mm-hmm. Well, what do you want to say about sanctions, something else you've been working on, of course? What are you planning there in terms of Iran and the impact there? Do sanctions actually work? And the same question with regard to 500% secondary sanctions or tariffs on countries who purchase energy products from Russia.
Okay, so two things there. There are Treasury sanctions. And if you look at a speech that I gave at the Economic Club of New York last March, I said that I believe the Iranian currency was on the verge of collapse, that if I were an Iranian citizen, I would take my money out. President Trump ordered Treasury and our OFAC division, Office of Foreign Asset Control, to put maximum pressure on Iran, and it's worked. Because in December, their economy collapsed. We saw a major bank go under. The central bank has started to print money. There is a dollar shortage. They are not able to get imports, and this is why the people took to the street. So this is economic statecraft. No shots fired, and things are moving in a very positive way here. On the 500% tariff on the buyers of Russian oil, that is a proposal that Senator Graham has in front of the Senate, and we will see whether that passes. We don't believe that President Trump needs that authority, that he can do it under IEEPA, but that the Senate wants to give him that authority. And just to be clear, that we have Europe buying Russian oil still 4 years later, they are financing the war against themselves. India started buying Russian oil after the conflict began, but President Trump put a 25% tariff on them, and India has geared down and has stopped buying Russian oil. And then 3, China is a very large buyer of Russian oil, as they are of Iranian oil, as they were of Venezuelan oil. But guess what, Maria? No more Venezuelan oil for them.
So would you treat China the same as the others in terms of buying Russian oil with regard to tariffs and sanctions?
Well, we'll see what happens with this Senate bill and with the Iranian oil. That'll be up to President Trump.
Secretary, what do you want to say about artificial intelligence and the idea that AI...
Yeah, that's there's the Supreme Court ruling is going to be coming down any day now, today or tomorrow, sometime. I think that the fact that the Senate bill is being put forth is a little bit concerning. I think the Kalshi market is showing that it seems like they're going to rule against Trump on this one. Don't know how that's going to play out. Don't know exactly what they have. I'm hoping that they have a backup plan going forward. I don't know what that's going to be. I don't know how it's going to look, but hopefully the Supreme Court doesn't shit the bed on this one. But it's not looking good right now. Yeah, as I release this video, I don't know if we'll have come down already, but I am interested to see what he has to say on this next topic. Let's take a look.
AI efficiencies will likely kill jobs. A lot of people are worried about jobs. Do we have a plan in the U.S. government right now in terms of job creation in the face of AI efficiency killing jobs?
Well, Maria, we are seeing the record factory groundbreakings. That's why President Trump wants to bring back these precision jobs to the U.S. And historically, every productivity boom has led to job growth. Now, can there be some toing and froing in terms of people changing professions? I can't remember what the number is. Maybe you know it. 50, 60% of the professions today didn't exist 30 years ago.
Well, it's a big number. Technology.
It's a big number, but it's something we're very cognizant of. We haven't seen it in the numbers yet. I think that it could be very different than what we saw with the China shock. The China shock was a blue-collar phenomenon. My guess is the AI shock might be a white-collar phenomenon. We'll see.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And again, this is something that I think we'll be able to figure this out as a society. We're going to have some growing pains, obviously, along the way. But on the onset, these factories primarily still have to be built. They have to be built, they have to be designed, they have to be constructed, they have to be engineered. All of these things have to happen on the onset. And that's definitely going to be a job boom. Like there's no way around that. There is going to be, you're going to need welders, plumbers, fabricators, engineers, electricians. You're going to need all these people to build these massive, massive factories that we're going to see going up. And then once they're built, there's going to be maintenance. There's going to be a whole subset of people that are going to be in charge of keeping these things running and humming along. And then with the advent of AI, we would hope that we could just ask the AI, hey, like, what do we do next for prosperity in this great nation? And hopefully the AI would just tell us and say, hey, you can do X, Y, and Z, and you guys will be great. So there's also that we're going to have, hopefully, this massively smart thing that can help us along the way figure this out after we've created it. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. 6283 Talk on the X. This was Scott Bessent, Maria Bartiromo. Always excellent. Check out the entire interview. It's about an hour long. We'll see you again on the next one. Take care, guys.